should reflect the same Hebrew words at each time.
Okay, so let's talk about the Book of Mormon briefly. You're not a Latter-day Saint,
No.
Obviously. Have you had a chance to read the chiasms that Jack has discovered in the Book of Mormon? What are your thoughts on them, your opinion on that? What does that mean to you?
To me, Jack's discovery, which he presented when I was together with him at a conference at BYU in Provo, it was so self-evident. It's the same issue. How come nobody noticed it before, right? And I still remember Jack Welch getting up there and talking about being a young man and studying the Book of Mormon, and he was actually in Germany, and he highlighted the passages. Now, this is all part of the creation of literature again, right? And he began to show these things, and I was, to use that hackneyed expression, blown away by Jack's discovery. And once he showed it, I said, well, yes, obviously it's there. This is
so it does match up to what you would have defined.
Very similar to what I discovered in the book Genesis, the system of doing it.
Yeah.
Based on the chiastic structure,
right,
alone, one can, and this is part of Jack Welch's incredible discovery, it would go a long way to establishing the LDS fundamental belief that this is a text from the world of ancient Israel.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. It's been an honor.
It's been such a pleasure. Yeah. This was great. Thanks.
The thing I loved about talking with Gary and people like him is that he's not a BYU professor of ancient scripture. He's not a man of the cloth. Someone else who can recognize and appreciate the existence of chiasmus in the Book of Mormon. Pretty cool. Well,
First time I've heard of chiasmus, kids.
I've got somewhere I need to be, and as you can see, I've got myself stuck in one of these notorious British garden labyrinths. It's gonna be a minute. I don't know how I'm gonna find a way out of here. It's embarrassing, really. The city is chock full of literary history. It is the backdrop of some of the world's most beloved characters and novels. Books like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They all took place here.
Louis Stevenson's
Perhaps one of the
museum in
most famous
Samoa,
authors to use
kids.
London in his novels was
He
Charles
wrote
Dickens.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Your Great Expectations, you got your
It was one of my
Your
favorite
Tale of
movies.
Cities, and of course, Scrooge, A Christmas Carol. Dickens was known for painting literary pictures of London that were strikingly authentic. He exposed the poverty, the child labor, and the cruelty of man, while still offering hope that people can change. I'm in fact standing across the street from one of Dickens's homes here at 49 Doughty Street in King's Cross. It's cool to be here and see this real Dickens place. But this isn't the first time I've come across Mr. Dickens in our search for Book of Mormon evidence. On a recent flight home from one of our adventures, I just happened to sit right next to a man who's, of all things, a collector of rare books and artifacts. And he has in his possession some really cool things related to Charles Dickens. His name is Reed Moon, and he's an expert at determining the authenticity of old and rare books. So this stuff's all put out here in the front. I'm guessing still is very valuable, but you must have some other items.
We do. We keep those in the back. If you want to go in the back, I can show you some of the treasures that are too valuable to be out front.
Nah, I think we're good. Let's wrap it. Of course we want to go back. Yes,
All right.
please.
This is it's from a castle over in the UK. So that's St. George slaying the dragon. You have James I and Anne of Denmark. So it's a lot of history. This is a 400-year-old historical door. But as you open it up, it does still have that creak.
Oh, love it. It does. Oh, that's a happy creek.
The first thing you notice is there's a desk, but nobody's supposed to sit at it just because it is an older desk. But the original owner of this desk, that man's name, Charles Dickens.
So you have Charles Dickens' desk that he wrote A Tale of Two Cities.
Yes.
This is quite the eclectic room.
It's everything.
The pop culture and now I'm obviously on the trail of Book of Mormon things. Do you
have a full vault full of older copies of the Book of Mormon, and we have another vault filled with every first edition of the Book of Mormon in every language. When I travel the world and people find out that I have a bookshop in Utah, invariably the subject of first edition copies of the Book of Mormon comes up. And everybody worldwide knows the value, and everybody's looking for them because for books printed in the 19th century, it's like top 5.
Yeah.
Like, it holds its own with some of the most important books printed.
Do you have any Books of Mormon here nearby that I can...
Actually, right?
I was going to say. Tell me something cool about one of these.
Well...
Now, that's not the actual book.
No, that's a protective clamshell. But as we open it up, you can see here is the book itself. Originally, 5,000 copies were printed.
Grandin, right?
Grandin Press. We can go to the title page right here, and you can see 1830. Number one question, do we know who this book belonged to? And the answer is yes. The person who owned this book was very proud of it and boldly wrote their name in ink. Not on the title page, but on...
Is it going to be somebody cool?
Hopefully. Hiram Smith.
Yeah, Hiram Smith, he's pretty cool. I seem to recall that name.
So this is Hiram Smith's copy. Just don't open up more than a V.
Joseph Smith's brother, kids, that was killed with Joseph Smith
That's Hiram's. Well, first of all,
in 1844.
Iron Doll ink is eating through the paper, so that bodes well. But actually, a lot of research has been done, and this is an entire cache of provenance, giving the entire background. This book was Hiram Smith's, but it disappeared for 150 years. And you say, well, how did it disappear? Well, first, let me pull this out. In 1832, this copy was acquired by Reynolds Cahoon. This is a copy of Hiram Smith's own journal. And if you go right here, it says, Reynolds Cahoon to owe me for the Book of Mormon $1.25. So he sold his copy for $1.25. So it changed hands from Hiram Smith to Reynolds Cahoon. After the saints leave Nauvoo, the book is gifted to Reynolds Cahoon's son, Pulaski Cahoon. But Pulaski is the older brother. He has this book. He doesn't stay with the church, and he goes to Missouri, takes this book with him, and it disappears for 150 years. This book surfaced 20 years ago in 2004 in Chicago. And the woman who owned it wrote a 2-page notarized affidavit, and she starts out, this is to certify that my family has possessed all of my life a fine copy of the Book of Mormon dated Palmyra, New York, 1830, and inscribed Hiram Smith's book. There it is, 1830, inscribed Hiram Smith's book. And it goes on to say, the Book of Mormon has been a part of my family for over 4 generations. I inherited it through my great-grandparents. They were originally slaves in Missouri. This book somehow ended up with slaves and slave descendants for 150 years. And you say, how do you know that? Well, here's the story. The Book of Mormon was always a prized possession to the generations of owners of my family. It was a sincere gift given by the Cahoons to wish them safety, prosperity, and freedom as they move north under their new lives. I really wish I could meet all of them, or at least know more family history, but I do not. Considering the end of the lineage as the last survivor, I decided to return the book closer to where it started, and to someone who will love, appreciate, and cherish as much as my family did. She also made one request that her prized possessions stay with the book. What do you think she wanted to stay with the book?
Because it belongs
Her family, maybe? Or?
to
Her family photographs.
Elder Ballard's
And so here are the people
grandfather,
who owned this book.
I think.
Wow.
And Dallin Oak's wife, I think.
They kept it safe for 150 years.
Isn't that cool?
So this copy of the Book of Mormon,
Family
you
side of the
know
family.
everywhere it's
Kids,
been.
Elder Ballard
Hiram Smith, Reynolds Cahoon,
Russell,
Reynolds Cahoon's son,
that just passed away
4 generations of the Bradshaws,
last year,
and then to my friend, and then myself. So I'm the 7th owner.
November
Hiram Smith.
12th.
the Book of Mormon, for some people initially at least, was so precious.
Be a year this November
that
12.
they took care of it as an heirloom level keepsake.
So that's
and for
it.
it to be such
That's
a
his.
joyous gift that they gave to these wonderful
So-
emancipated slaves, you know that the intent behind it was
Elder
different.
Ballard Russell, that was
So to be able
his
to authenticate
grandfather
a
or
book
grandma's mother.
that came from a certain
something like
place
that.
at a
I can
certain
look it
time
up.
that was
It's
owned by a certain person is one thing, and it's one amazing thing, and it's obviously a very valuable thing. And our quest is to somehow find ways to authenticate the content within the Book of Mormon itself. And as we found in our journeys, we come across people of faith, we come across people of scholastic backgrounds that understand literary evidences.
Elder Ballard
And
is
all
on your
arrows
mother's
kind of point to the Book of
YouTube
Mormon
channel
being authentic. But ultimately, at
since
least I believe, the authenticity
16
of
or
the book is really
17 years ago.
in the spiritual.
She uploaded
realm.
that.
Like you mentioned, you read it for yourself. You felt that it was true. What more
He
evidence
was
does a
trying
person
to
need?
teach
Did you
everybody
think
about the
Joseph
truth
Smith
of the
wrote
Book of Mormon.
himself? No. Why not?
Well, first of all, I've read it numerous times, and I have my own reason for believing just the number of times I've read it, and I see what it takes for a book to stick around. And there are so many forgotten books. If Joseph Smith would have written it, it would have been long forgotten by now.
It's beautiful. Anyway, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I thank God for Joseph
This
Smith
is just fantastic.
and God and Moroni for allowing Joseph Smith to complete it. So kids, appreciate Joseph Smith and Moroni and the Smith family
Ooh,
that helped to bring it forward for you guys
this
to
is
know.
lovely. I'm at Whitby Abbey.
And
up
Martin
on the
Harris.
northeast coast of England, and it is suitably creepy. In fact, supposedly it was the place that inspired Bram Stoker to write his chilling classic Dracula.
Oh.
And of course, you understand the clear connection between the Book of
I used to
Mormon
love those
and Dracula.
movies.
Let me tell you,
It was scary. It's just that it was
Bram
something.
Stoker's novel Dracula.
It was
is
just
unique
something.
in that he chose to write it as though it were a true account. So the chapters, in fact, are a series of letters written between different characters in the book, or journal entries, actually from 6 different characters. Of course, a good novelist has the ability to do this, to create these character voices that are distinct or different from one another, so that as we're reading this letter from Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker, it does, in fact, sound like Van Helsing, a different character from Miss Harker. The ability to create these
And there's
distinct
something like
voices
that
is
in the
actually a hallmark
Book of Revelation
of
that I've come
literary
across
masters such
too,
as Stoker or Dickens
which
or
is I'm
whoever.
still
The Book of Mormon
waiting until God's
includes
timing.
dozens of individual character voices, and in fact was written by many different authors. Though some people believe it was written by a single author, whether it was Joseph Smith or someone else who clearly must have had once in a lifetime literary genius level intellect. But to shed more light on this, which is called spirometry.
I thank God for
I had a
answered
chance to
prayers.
meet with Dr. Paul
Thank you, God, for
Fields.
Jesus, your Son, Jesus Christ. Anyways, kids, your mother doesn't believe because somebody told her, it's because God told her. Because that's an answer to my prayer in 1997.
Field of spirometry, which, as I understand it, is the statistical analysis of variations in literary style between one writer or genre and another. Dr. Fields has been doing some groundbreaking work in identifying through spirometry the different writers of the Book of Mormon, the difference between them. Dr. Fields, hello.
It's good to see you, Scott.
You too. Thanks for having me. This is
Good being here.
Spirometry. Just tell me, did I get it right? I kind of gave a little, a condensed version of the definition. Is that more or less what it is?
Well, that's what stylometry is. We're trying to
I am grateful to
identify the
God for
style that
Jesus,
a
sending
speaker or a
Jesus
writer is using.
and the Holy
What does that
Spirit.
have to do with me being able to find internal evidences
Or
of
I
the-
never
of
would
the
have
authenticity of the Book of Mormon.
got answers to my
as the name
prayers.
says, diameter means the measurement
Who
of styles.
Joseph
So if
Smith
we
in the Book
take
of
a look at
Mormon
the Book
was,
of
or
Mormon, which
Mormon.
claims to have various speakers over a 1,000-year period of time, we could look and see if they're the same or if they're different, because they should be different if the Book of Mormon was written by 82 different speakers rather than just one person, such as Joseph Smith.
I see. And how do you do that?
But what we look at are the grammatical words. These are called function words. These are the words that are prepositions, conjunctions, pronouns, these type of words that don't convey any meaning, but they are the words that speakers, writers use to as scaffolding to construct their message. Well, let me give you this comparison between the Book of Mormon speakers and the speakers in the 19th century novels.
Oh, very good. Okay.
We're going to step into the world of Book of Mormon voices in virtual reality.
Oh, good.
We're on that headset,
Oh,
Scott.
yes, it
Here
looks
are the
just like the
controllers.
Okay, wow. So apparently you have to play video games to ascertain the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. That makes it easier for certain generations, to be sure.
What you see are spheres, and each of those spheres are the words of a speaker, either in the Book of Mormon or in the 19th century novels.
I'm seeing it.
So the biggest distinction is along that axis that separates the green spheres of the Book of Mormon from the 19th century novels. Each of those colored spheres is one of the 19th century novelists. This one's Jane Austen, and we have her
Oh, it's blinking. Oh, okay.
Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility.
Yes, I love that movie.
And then we have Charles Dickens,
Which is
Great Expectations,
okay, very good.
and Oliver Twist, James Fenimore Cooper, Last of the Mohicans,
Right.
and Deerslayer, and then Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn
Is the
by Mark Twain.
Oh, I love that book.
Now you'll see that
Tom Sawyer
each
and
of the authors'
Very
spheres
thin.
grouped together.
I watched the movie
Well, they were
too,
created by the same mind, so that
and
makes
I
sense.
came to
It
America.
does indeed. Yes.
But you can also see that the speakers, the characters within an author, are distinctly different from each other. Let's take a look at the Book of Mormon.
Right, which is up here the green.
Those are the green ones.
So I'll bring it down.
There's 28 authors, as we mentioned, and they range from Abinadi to Zenith. You'll notice how far apart they spread from each other.
Oh wow.
Okay, so
Now
who's we pointing at here?
The size of the sphere,
Is the amount of words?
the amount of words that each one speaks. So Mormon speaks 97,000 words. He's the biggest speaker in the Book of Mormon. He has the biggest sphere.
It's the Book of Mormon.
Followed by Nephi, who has 28,000 words. Followed third by Alma the Younger, who has about 21,000 words.
That's awesome.
But look how they separate from each other.
Because they are, statistically speaking, on this plot,
They're
they are
different.
that different of a voice.
They are different.
Okay.
And so you'll notice now, most strikingly, however, in the entire display, is the variation, the spread of those green spheres.
Yes, compared to the variation and spread of even the best literary artists of their day.
Exactly
Am I
so.
getting that right?
And so there's more variation in one book, the Book of Mormon, than in 8 novels written by geniuses of the times.
Wow.
Well, that's
Highly
because that's why it's
unlikely,
called
as you
the
said,
Book of
For a
Mormon,
farm boy,
because it was his
little
record that he
education, living on
kept.
the American frontier.
Really, 3, 4, 5, however many D's we're talking about here, dimensions, is really the only way to kind of capture how truly cool the differences are from.
Well, there's 250 different dimensions that we use to describe their styles, and we projected it statistically down into 3 dimensions so that we can see it. If we listen to their voices and we read their messages, we can gain a testimony.
Isn't that really what it's all about?
That's what it's all about.
When all is said and done. And all, in fact, is said and done.
Great talking with you,
Thank you so
Scott.
much. Yeah, I'm just going to try to find my way out of here now that I don't have, Oculus Prime on my head. Paul Field's stylometric findings are now available online, so dig a little deeper for yourself. I'm grateful there are people like Paul out there who love the Book of Mormon enough that they apply science and technology to help